only to have the power cut off mid-evening because they hadn't paid the utility bill. "Marcus," one friend laughed over the phone, "you should have seen it." Olivia was mortified. Brian tried to play it off like it was a mistake, but everyone knew what was really going on. I didn't laugh, though. I just nodded, letting the satisfaction wash over me. This wasn't about schadenfreude or rubbing their failures in their faces. It was about balance. They had tipped the scales with their betrayal, and now life was evening things out. One day I ran into Brian at a coffee shop. He looked haggard, his once polished appearance replaced by something more disheveled. He didn't see me at first, so I had a moment to observe. He was hunched over his laptop, his brow furrowed as he scrolled through what looked like job listings. When he finally glanced up and saw me, his expression shifted. There was no smugness, no bravado, just a flicker of embarrassment. "Marcus," he said, standing awkwardly. "Brian," I replied coolly. "How's it going?" He hesitated, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. "Good, just busy with work and all that." "Work, huh?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "That's good to hear." He laughed nervously, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, keeping busy, you know how it is." I just nodded, letting the silence stretch between us. He shifted uncomfortably before muttering something about needing to get back to his tasks and hurriedly excusing himself. That encounter told me everything I needed to know. Brian was struggling, and Olivia's perfect new life wasn't as perfect as she'd hoped. As the weeks went by, the messages from Olivia became more frequent. They were vague at first, just checking in or "hope you're doing well," but I knew what they really meant. She was testing the waters, trying to gauge if I'd be open to helping her out. I ignored most of them. The few I did respond to were short and polite, giving her nothing to work with. It wasn't long before her messages became more direct. "Marcus, I know we've had our differences, but I could really use a friend right now." A friend? The irony wasn't lost on me. She had discarded me like yesterday's news, but now that her shiny new life was falling apart, she wanted a lifeline. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because I didn't owe her anything. Olivia had made her choices, and now she was living with them. My silence spoke volumes. While she and Brian scrambled to keep their heads above water, I was soaring. Opportunities kept coming, my investments were thriving, and my life was filled with peace and purpose. I didn't need to confront Olivia or Brian. I didn't need to shout, accuse, or demand apologies. My success, my happiness, that was my revenge. And the best part? They knew it. They saw it in every ignored message, every passing rumor about my success, and every encounter where I walked away with my head held high while they scrambled to pick up the pieces. This wasn't just about getting even. It was about proving to myself that I could rise above it all. And I had. Quietly, confidently, completely. The downfall of Olivia and Brian wasn't an explosion, it was a slow, crumbling mess of their own making. I watched it unfold from a distance, hearing bits and pieces from mutual acquaintances and seeing the occasional post on social media. Each new update painted a clearer picture. They were drowning in their own hubris, and the water was rising fast. At first, Olivia tried to keep up appearances. She continued to post pictures of her and Brian at fancy dinners, vacations that looked far more luxurious than they likely were, and snapshots of their perfect life. But the cracks were starting to show. The dinners became less frequent, the vacations non-existent, and the smiles in their photos began to look forced. Then came the whispers. People started noticing that Olivia wasn't as put together as she used to be. Her once perfect hair and designer clothes were being replaced by cheaper alternatives. Brian, the ever-flashy showman, was now recycling outfits he used to wear only once. It wasn't long before the gossip turned into direct updates. One day, a mutual friend called me with the news. "Marcus, you'll love this," she said, barely containing her laughter. "Olivia and Brian are in some deep trouble. Apparently, they're months behind on their rent." I raised an eyebrow, surprised but not shocked. "Rent? Or I thought they owned that house." "Not even close," she said. "They've been renting it this whole time. Word is, they're on the verge of being evicted." I let out a small chuckle. It was poetic justice, really. Olivia had fought so hard to take that house in the divorce, only to find out she couldn't afford to keep it. The financial troubles didn't stop there. Another friend mentioned that Brian had been laid off from his job. He was still pretending to have everything under control, but it was clear he was scrambling. Olivia, for all her complaints about me not working, had never held a real job herself. Now, faced with mounting bills and no income, their perfect life was falling apart. One evening, as I sipped my coffee and scrolled through emails, I got a text from Olivia. "Marcus, I really need to talk to you. It's important." I stared at the message for a long moment before typing a response. "Is everything okay?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Not really. Brian and I are going through a rough patch, and I was wondering if you could help." Just a little loan to get us through. A loan? From me? I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. She had left me, ridiculed me, and flaunted her new relationship with Brian. And now she wanted my help? I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, but I'm afraid I can't help. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Her response was slow this time, and I could almost feel the frustration through the screen. Marcus, please. Just this once. You don't have to make it a big deal. I didn't bother responding. There was nothing more to say. Olivia and Brian had made their bed, and now they were lying in it. The next piece of news came a week later. Olivia and Brian had officially been evicted. The landlord, apparently tired of their excuses, had given them a hard deadline, and they hadn't been able to meet it. They were forced to move into a tiny, rundown apartment on the outskirts of town. Marcus, I wish you could see it, the same mutual friend told me over the phone. It's such a far cry from the life they were pretending to have. Olivia's barely holding it together, and Brian looks like he's aged 10 years. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Their downfall wasn't about me, it was about the consequences of their own choices. Olivia had traded a life of stability and support for a fantasy that couldn't withstand reality. And Brian? Well, he was reaping exactly what he'd sown. But the most telling sign came during another unexpected encounter. I ran into Olivia at a grocery store, her cart filled with store-brand essentials. She looked up, saw me, and froze. Marcus, she said, her voice shaky. Olivia, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. She looked defeated. The confident, smug woman who had demanded a divorce and flaunted her affair was nowhere to be found. I hope you're doing well, I said, breaking the silence. She nodded quickly, her eyes darting away. You too, she mumbled, before pushing her cart down the aisle. As I watched her walk away, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of emotions. Satisfaction, yes, but also pity. Olivia had made her choices, and they had led her here. This was the life she had fought so hard to create, and now she was trapped in it. I didn't need to say or do anything to make her regret what she'd done. Life had already taken care of that for me. And as I walked out of the store that day, I realized that sometimes karma doesn't need a push, it just needs time. It wasn't long before everything came to a head. I knew it was coming, it was inevitable. People like Olivia and Brian don't handle consequences well. When their carefully constructed illusion of success starts to crumble, they lash out, looking for someone to blame or someone to bail them out. One morning, as I was finishing up a client call, my phone lit up with a number I hadn't saved, but I knew it, Olivia. For a moment, I considered letting it ring out, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked up, keeping my tone calm. Marcus speaking. Her voice was tense, on the verge of cracking. Marcus, we need to talk. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. About what, Olivia? There was a pause, as if she were trying to find the right words. About everything. About Brian, about us. I raised an eyebrow, though she couldn't see it. Us. The nerve of this woman. Olivia, there is no us. That ended the day you handed me divorce papers. What's this really about? She hesitated again, her voice lowering. We're struggling, Marcus. Things haven't been easy since everything happened. I just thought maybe we could talk. Maybe you could help. Help. There it was, the real reason for her call. Help with what? I asked, feigning ignorance. Financially, she admitted, her tone filled with forced humility. Just a loan, to get us back on our feet. I couldn't help but let out a laugh. Olivia, you left me because you thought I wasn't good enough, that I didn't work hard enough or make enough money for you. And now, you want me to fix the mess you made? Her voice sharpened, defensiveness creeping in. You don't understand. Brian and I just hit a rough patch. A rough patch? I cut her off. Olivia, you made your choice. You left me for Brian, thinking he was the better option. And now you want me to clean up after you? Not a chance. She started to protest, but I didn't let her. You wanted to be free, Olivia, free of me, free of my lack of ambition. So enjoy that freedom. I have no interest in being your safety net. I hung up before she could respond. The next encounter wasn't over the phone, it was in person. A week later, Olivia showed up at my office, unannounced. She looked frazzled, her once polished appearance replaced by something much more desperate. Marcus, she said, as she stepped into my office, ignoring my assistant's attempts to stop her. We need to talk. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. You've got 2 minutes. Make it count. She launched into a tirade about how difficult things had been for her and Brian, how the world had been unfair to them, and how she was only asking for a small favor. Olivia, I interrupted,